Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Jason Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Jones, broadcasting from the beautiful hill country of Texas. And the only thing more beautiful than the hill country of Texas is my wonderful face, which you, listeners of the Jason Jones Show, are getting to see for the first time. I know what you're thinking. Why is Boris Johnson hosting the Jason Jones Show? But in fact, I'm not Boris Johnson. I am Jason Jones. And one of my dear friends and one of my writing partners, Stephen Herried, is coming on the show today. I think he was our first or second guest when we first launched the Jason Jones Show. And I was inspired because Stephen, at the time, hosted my favorite podcast. He since went on to bigger and better things like managing the most influential e-newsletter in the world. But we're going to have Stephen on today because he has a new song that he's going to premiere live on the Jason Jones Show. And so we're excited to have him on here. This episode is being brought to you by the Jason Jones Show. This episode is being brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project. Go to thegreatcampaign.org and become a monthly donor. $25 a month or more. What do we do at VPP? I'm assuming you know. We stand in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world during the most challenging times. And a donation of $25 or more a month gets you this lovely Vulnerable People Project hat. It has our website there. And then we have all our team members across the world. We're in Ukraine. We're in Gaza. We're in Mongolia. We're in Afghanistan and Pakistan and the Philippines, Nigeria, Malawi. Our team members have flags. This is our flag for our team in Israel in Gaza. So go to thegreatcampaign.org and become a monthly donor. All right? Now on with my interview with the great Stephen Herried. Now, normally there would be bumper music here, so this is all new for me. And then I would pause and I would say, Stephen Herried, welcome to the Jason Jones Show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a real honor. This is very exciting, and congratulations on the visual aspect. Your show is so much prettier now.
Is it very pretty? I'll tell you, as you know, because you had to sit through our first show, we had a lot of technical problems. By technical problems, I mean we had a lot of Jason Jones is not that bright problems. And so every step of the way, it's been a little frustrating. Are you a little frustrated with me, Stephen?
No, I'm not, because actually, I'll tell you what, I hate technology. I beg people. I was like, pretend I'm 80. Pretend I'm part of the greatest generation. And I have no patience and no knowledge whatsoever when it comes to technology. I get completely lost. And every single, it seems like every other day someone's like, DMing you or emailing you and be like, from a coworker, like, do you have Juicy Fruit? It's the new app that everyone, and it makes your life so much easier. And I'm like, no, I know how to laptop. That's all. That was enough.
Wait, is it compatible with my brother word processor? I just don't know.
Yeah. Just strand me on an island.
Here's what we have to remember.
The
youngsters need to know. Like, I'm not old. I mean, maybe I'm old. I'm 52. But I was a junior in college when I got my first email account. Mm-hmm. And I used a brother word processor until I was a junior in college. I did not have my first cell phone until I was out of college. So really, it's just been bewildering. We could have stopped with the iPod and the BlackBerry if we would have just taken like a 50-year pause. I'd have been good.
Yeah, I feel the same. Well, I grew up in the middle of nowhere where you couldn't get a lot of services, and we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't have a lot of these stuff. It's like I might as well have been born a generation or two earlier. So to me, it's all like in my lifetime, all of the changes. And I'm like, this is, I'm totally ungrateful. It's the worst.
We should be grateful because we're getting to communicate with a lot of folks thanks to this technology and what you cannot see. One of the challenges with this going video now is I probably going to have to start shaving and bathing more regularly because I came straight from the boxing gym, was running late. I threw this shirt on and without showering, wearing my gym clothes from here down. Obviously, I didn't shave today or yesterday or probably the day before. So these things technology really can't fix yet, but I'm looking forward to AI being able to bathe and shave the image that I present, well, I can come straight from the gym while not having shaved.
Yeah. Are you going to get rid of your body? Become a pure cerebrum?
If I knew
Like
what
a beam of light?
Supreme meant.
Yeah.
What's that?
You could
A
become
beam
like a
of
beam
light.
of
If I'm
light.
just, it's like I'm just a light that talks, like the
Yeah.
burning bush. That
Yeah,
might
and
be a
you can
good
choose your
idea.
voice, and you can choose the voice of Liam Neeson. That could be who you are. A beam of light that talks like Liam Neeson.
That's how I see myself, by the way. But then I look in the mirror and I see, like I say, I see Boris Johnson staring back at me in the mirror. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is Boris Johnson doing in my mirror? And why isn't Liam Neeson looking back at me?
Hmm.
You know, when I was taking a train into Ukraine about 6 months ago, I was privileged to go on the presidential train car, the very same train that Boris Johnson went into Ukraine to scuttle a peace agreement like a little demon. I was on that train. And when we stopped at the border with Poland, it was 2 a.m. and I was very disheveled. And I told everyone to pretend I was Boris Johnson. But clearly the border guards were prepared and they laughed and they said, okay, Mr. Jason Jones. That was very funny. And they started asking me about some of my movies, which was interesting, which was quite interesting. But yeah, so I think I look like Liam Neeson, and my mirror lies to me.
Mirrors are not
I've let you,
not very kind.
and they're not. I don't think they're accurate in my case.
I know they're not.
I don't
I know.
trust
I
them.
agree. Yeah.
So,
You
Stephen, the
go,
reason
girl.
I'm having you on my my first ever with your pipe, you're such a intellectual. Two reasons I have you on. One reason you don't even know I'm going to talk about. I mean, the first is you have a new song. You've started a beautiful nonprofit. And I feel like even being on my show, you're destroying the whole purpose of your nonprofit. So this is the challenge. I think we're having a Mosquito Coast like moment right here. So you create a nonprofit for folks in your community to come together and make music or just watch other people make music. No phones are allowed. No Instagram is allowed. Obviously, you can't even bring your phones on or turn your phones on. Where you're
Yeah.
writing original music, you're performing original music, you're even making music videos, and you don't tell anyone about it. And now
Yeah.
you're coming on the
Right.
Jason Jones show to tell people about it. And I wonder if we're going to just ruin the whole thing. But
I'm
but
allowed.
tell
I'm
people
allowed. Yeah, I'm allowing myself to talk about it because, like, with you, you're a friend, and I can just pretend that we're. I'm assuming no one's watching. Is that right?
it's a good
We're
assumption. It's a
we're
very This is a
this
fair
is
assumption. Now, what's
confidential,
interesting
right?
is we've never done
Yeah.
the video podcast before. We have the
Yeah.
Jason Jones Show YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
somehow, without ever doing anything on there, we have almost 5,000 subscribers. So maybe
Mhm.
somebody will watch the
No, I'm
Jason
sure.
Jones Show,
No,
folks.
no, I'm kidding. You have a massive audience, but the thing about the tone of all of your work has this sincerity to it that actually you would fit in really well at this nonprofit you mentioned that I founded, and generally, yeah. I mean, I would. I'm allowing myself to do this, and to tell you the honest truth, I hadn't even thought of the fact that there's that conflict, like you said, between this sort of precious local level intimacy of what I'm doing and going on your show, because again, there's just the way you approach topics, the way you discuss things is just it has the same kind of grit and authenticity that I'm going for. But what we're talking about, it's a nonprofit. Yes, it's called Last Day Music, and it is based in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. It serves my community directly, and the mission of Last Day Music is to give the people of Dodge County, Wisconsin, a healthy and creative way of expressing their most deeply held beliefs and emotions through a revival in Americana music. And all of that is just a way of saying that we get together every Friday night and jam. And a lot of the music is original. And by Americana, I mean that
That's
it's just a
brilliant.
broad.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
We get together and jam. You said that in a lot of words, and you said we just get together and jam. But I think the reason why that's important is we talked about this. what you're making an act of the will to do in your community prior to 1997 was happening everywhere all the time, and nobody thought twice about it. It's just
Yeah.
something that was.
Yep, I think that's probably true. And honestly, part of what I got, we do so much of this lately. We there are so many things that just happen, and no one questions it. No one stops and says, "Wait a minute, why are we doing this? Is this a good idea?" And a whole bunch of factors went into it, but yeah, we stopped being friends, and I think that's what people are really longing for. You could go with professionals, professionally gathered and analyzed stats, and that would be pretty much what I just said colloquially would be borne out. People are no longer friends. They're extremely lonely. They're extremely socially isolated, and that's extremely bad for us. We know that. I mean, hell, you can't do that to lab rats without them suffering immense, like catastrophic mental health issues. You can't deprive them of company. You can't isolate them. And we're just, for whatever reason, very isolated. We don't get together. We don't jam. And that is part of why at Last Day Music, phones are banned. Because speaking of which, social media is a failed experiment, essentially. I mean, that's not even debated anymore. It's not brought people together. And it hurts people mentally. Yeah, and before I started Last Day Music, I went around and really started in 2020. In 2020, I went to a lot of bars, not going to lie. And I spent a lot of time in bars. And every other guy I talked to at a bar was newly back on basically narcotics or alcohol to a damaging degree. A lot of them had been laid off during the lockdowns. A lot of them had lost their wives or their marriages had fallen apart. They'd lost contact with their kids, all of this stuff. And but they were mostly just extremely alone. And a lot of them talked as though they were really just honestly saying they're not sure they wanted to go on living. And that started in 2020. But ever since then, I moved to this county after that and in the end of 2020. And it's still true. It's like every time I go out, I'll strike up a conversation with a stranger within 5 minutes. They're admitting that they're painfully lonely. And so, yeah, I mean, I felt that needed to be addressed. And the great thing about it too is that it's so natural to human beings that you don't even really have to preach about it or anything. You just kind of and it's funny. I tried to sell this to a younger friend of mine, and he was like, "What are you doing there? What is your pitch?" And he kept trying to like ply out of me. He was like, "No, what's your elevator speech? I don't get it. What are you doing?" And I was like, I don't know why you don't get that it's awesome that we would get together and play acoustic music together on Fridays.
Well, you should say that you actually have you sell vitamins for a multi-level marketing company, and you found this was just a new way to make more contacts.
I should have said something about. I should have used the word leveraging somehow.
I'm leveraging loneliness to bring people together to think they're performing music together. Well, really, I'm going to sell them vitamins. Yeah. Well, okay. So about that, so I'm a Gen Xer, and what would you consider yourself?
I think I'm a millennial.
What's your millennial? I don't know these generations. So
I was born in '88.
I was very blessed that. Okay, so yeah, you're a millennial, but you're blessed too because you spent most of your life without a phone in your pocket, downloading everything kind of crazy, and social media, I don't think ruptured your childhood. I have two children your age, and maybe growing up in Hawaii it was different, and I know you were homeschooled, but they said that they were really preserved until adulthood from the ravages of social media. And in Hawaii, we still do have very large families and sort of authentic, organic community. I hate that we even have to use those words about what it was just family and friends and neighborhoods and people being people. How much of this do we have to be LARPers? How much of us have to pretend to be normal until we can reclaim normal? Or do you find that when you started this and people were coming together, was it awkward at first? Was this strange? Like, what are we doing here? Or did it just click?
I think it clicked, and I can only attribute that to the grace of God. I think it was a miraculous degree of clickery. It really did. Maybe it'd be awkward. I can imagine it being awkward, and you probably are imagining it starting kind of awkward. But no, it didn't really. One of the people involved right off the bat was an older gentleman. He plays stand-up bass, Tom. Um, he went through the hippie revolution, and he's seen a lot. It's been a while, and he understands what they. It's interesting to talk with him actually, and he and I have late night conversations all the time about. He remembers everyone tried for a kind of new authenticity and intimacy and friendship, and it really didn't work out. And then it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so now he's excited about it and has been from the start. At one point, he said, "This feels like the '60s again," which was interesting. But no, yeah, not awkward. I think there are a lot of
And
people.
you know what? And if you were older, he would have said the 50s, or if you were older than that, the 40s or the 30s or the 20s or the 10s. It just feels like humanity again.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because that's true. There's something about Last Day music. I was saying to someone recently. I said the atmosphere there is special, and I said it feels safe, like knowing. No, I said it feels exciting, like taking a risk, and safe, like knowing you're going to be okay. And it's a place where one thing is that people can speak openly and be themselves. For whatever reason, again, I attribute it to providence or something, because I don't know, it wasn't my accomplishment. But for whatever reason, people are there saying stuff that I know they wouldn't be able to say at work, for example. Heck, some of them are saying stuff they wouldn't have been able to say at church, but which I nonetheless approve. Things that they ought to say, healthy things to say. And not that I'm saying this is some sort of weird, fest of oversharing or whatever, but it's more like people aren't looking over their shoulders constantly, like, geez, I hope I don't say the wrong thing and get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, give me an example. At one point, there was a guy there. He's just said something about. I say things all the time to be antagonistic because I think it's fun. Like conflict for me is kind of fun. So,
well, I guess you're probably the only conservative there. I mean, seeing that you're outside of Madison, Wisconsin, is it a pretty? I picture a bunch of crunchy, left-leaning folks with the random guy that hunts and doesn't care too much about politics but loves playing the guitar. That's what I picture.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, and even that.
You should inspect the bumper stickers. You should survey the bumper stickers.
I should survey the bumper stickers. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we don't talk about. I mean, the thing is that actually, even like when I hear, conservative, I don't think, oh, good, those are my people, necessarily, because it's such a superficial term, and it doesn't say much about a person. For all I know, it just means that they're an insufferable ideologue who's not going to shut up about, whatever current event,
whatever,
and it doesn't mean that they have humanity. It doesn't mean that they're a good addition to the atmosphere here, for example. And so, yeah, I don't really vet people. And I don't know if you were to ask people there, it's funny, actually, you just said, are you the only conservative there? I was like, I wonder how many of the people that I interact with on a weekly basis there would be kind of shocked to hear you call me a conservative. Like, you know what I mean? They wouldn't say, they would be like, oh, you are? I didn't know that.
Well, it's like my love is Muay Thai kickboxing. So I talk with these guys. I was almost late to do this show because there were these two young men. One guy was like 6'5". They were both really good. Two guys, young but taller than me. I don't normally get to train with guys like that. And I've been doing this sport since I was a boy. So I was like, while we were sparring, I was giving them some little tips because I'm left-handed. And I said, hey, when you're fighting a left-hander, this is a good way to catch me because I use this trick to catch you, but you can use this trick to catch me. And then after we were training, my son wanted to go eat Zaxby's chicken. And he was like, Dad, let's go. But for 45 minutes, me and these young men were talking. We were just talking about everything, training tips, training a little bit. Never once did we talk about politics. I'd never seen these young guys before because I travel a lot. I'm not dropping in this gym a lot. And then the young man said, hey, my father owns a Mexican restaurant. I'd like to invite you and your wife to come to our restaurant, da-da-da. And obviously no politics came in. This was just a normal human thing. But I think the
Hmm.
magic of when you stick to your tribe, like I think if I came there, it would be strange because I'm not a musician, but you guys have a tribal affinity. And so when I'm doing Muay Thai, and I know you do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, um, you're there, and it's really, you have something you're really passionate about that you can share. And, these kids will never know my politics until they start following me on Instagram. Then they always have lots of
Nice.
questions or this and that. But
Yeah.
I think it's when it's. I feel sad that most people nowadays don't have whatever their passion is, whether it's dancing. They should dance. If you like to, if you dreamt of ballroom dancing or you were a dancer when you were young, go dance. If you are play a guitar, go have a jam session. Go down to the local instrument shop, chit chat, hang out there for an hour, drinking a coffee, talking to the kid behind the counter, and you're going to end up jamming in someone's garage. I guarantee you, within a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, like, I don't really want to hear it. If I don't know you, and you come into an atmosphere like you said, the gym where they're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Last Day Music where we're doing music and poetry or whatever, and you walk in to either of those places, and you're like, "Hi, I'm a Marxist," or "Hi, I'm a Republican," I would say that's not very interesting. Say something interesting. That's boring,
Like, whoa,
you know?
whoa, that's a nice guitar,
Yeah.
or you're. I loved you do this. I mean, I'm a great. I'm just in awe of people around me, and so when I'm in the gym and I watch young people progress, I notice things. So I'm complimenting them. Oh, your teep. It's like a type of kick. Your teep has gotten really good, or man, you're getting strong, or well, I noticed this used to be lame. I'll be honest with them. Like this, you were lame. Like when I was sparring you, I know you do this. It was real lame. I get you. Now your weaknesses become your strength. Do you notice? Have you watched now as people who are coming together, you're jamming with? Have you seen like just? I'm imagining because of the joy and the freedom you're bringing them, you're seeing great leaps in progress that they're making as musicians.
As musicians? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, no, and it's funny. There's a we have a great participant. She's been coming from the beginning, and she just has exactly the right spirit for the place. She came the first couple of times, and I kind of told her about bluegrass. She didn't really know much about bluegrass, and sure enough, she came a couple of times later, and she brought spoons. Have you ever heard of that? It's playing the spoons.
Oh yeah, I'm a big bluegrass fan. That's awesome. So
Yeah, she
she's
brought spoons.
just that, and she's been
And
teaching herself the spoons.
yeah, she showed up without knowing how to play spoons, which I loved. And she played
Oh,
these
so she
freaking
brought him and said,
spoons.
"Who can teach me?"
Yeah, well, no, she didn't even. I mean, she just started playing them, and she was playing. She was playing spoons to like somber waltz music, like totally the wrong. And I congratulated her afterwards. I took her aside and congratulated her. I said, not only do I love that you came, you had the spiritedness to just like pick up spoons and start playing them and bring them here, but I especially love that you played spoons badly in the wrong kind of music, like the wrong songs.
Those
That's
are my
just
favorite
awesome.
people. Yeah, people who
Yeah.
have the courage to publicly be really bad at something are one day going to be amazing at that thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's nothing inherently bad about the way she played. I'm just saying she would play like spoons on a somber when she first got them, and
Yeah,
then
no, it's
which you're not.
ridiculous.
It's like a clickety fun, like it's like tap
But
dancing
she had
to a
spoons, and she's
dirge.
like, "I'm doing it. I'm going for it."
Yeah, I loved it, and yeah, and she's playing up stand up bass now. Actually, Tom is teaching her stand up bass, and we've got some people that have come in who are writing songs. One person has started sharing their poetry, and she can sing. So I'm like, well, that'll go together at some point, obviously. Um, and it's almost like Tom actually is funny. Tom is like the stalwart. He's like the spirit of the place. He's always there. He said, he said, this feels sort of like a songwriter's workshop. Okay, you know, because I'm a songwriter. I write a lot of songs, and a lot of the songs we play are actually my originals because
And we're gonna get to
because I
play an original today.
because I can.
Are you gonna play the original on the air? Or are we gonna embed the video?
With Father Aeneas, I'd love it if you'd embed it. I mean, I could try.
Yeah.
If are you going to be editing this afterwards?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to air
Because
live. I mean, we're going to put it up. It's going to stream. But I think
yeah,
if
I mean,
that
I
lady
have a
can play
guitar here. If you
spoons
want,
to somber music,
I could do a quick like sound check with Mark at some point if you want me to try and play a song. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, I didn't mean to digress, and because I do want to talk about Father Aeneas. We're
that's
going
fine.
to embed it. Mark wants to embed it because he wants it to have the best quality.
Sounds good.
So what we'll do is we'll talk about it. I didn't mean to digress, but so you do. You're gonna. We're gonna premiere your song here, embedded. You do a lot of original music. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that yeah, Tom said it sometimes feels like like a songwriter's workshop, and I can see the sense in that because I write a lot of original music, but I keep it within that genre. Like in the mission statement, it says Americana music, and I just say that because it's such a broad term. What I mean by Americana is basically music that you can sing along to on the first hearing, inviting, simple music that is that is not prohibitive or weirdly sophisticated or complex. And like Will the Circle Be Unbroken, You Are My Sunshine, all of those old bluegrass tunes and old style country tunes are the style in which I try to write even more and more because it's so inviting. And Bob Dylan said this. Bob Dylan said, like, in some interviews about his songwriting, like, where do you get it? And he said, "Oh, I just listen to like really old, time-tested folk music and try to directly imitate it." And I think that's the
Yeah,
way to go.
well. That's the history of the community where you live, right? This
Yeah, I
sort of
mean,
time, this sort of
it's the his.
Americana music. You live in a very
Yeah,
rural
it is
area.
native. Yeah. Although
It's
maybe I
native.
should try next time you go to the Middle East. I'll see how it plays there. If
I
I can
think you
come
should
along.
come with me. And well, this is the thing again with tribes, right? So as a musician, anywhere you go in the world, you're going to find someone who's just passionate about music. And wherever I go, especially in the Middle East, like Iraq, for example, the Iraqis love kickboxing, right? The Dutch love kickboxing. So there's certain parts of the world where I can go, but really wherever I go in the world, you're going to meet somebody who loves kickboxing. I'll never forget. I was in Auckland, and I was walking to downtown, and there were a bunch of men, Middle Eastern men, in a Middle Eastern cafe, drinking coffee, watching old UFC fights around a laptop. And I asked if I could join them, because I liked one of the fighters. And so I spent like 3 hours with these old guys in downtown Auckland coffee shop talking about the UFC. And
Hmm.
that's, I think that's the key, right, to building something like what you're building is you're tapping into something that's real and sadly people were doing alone. And you did this in the midst of COVID, or as we were, right? So COVID restrictions or coming out of COVID restrictions. So there was sort of this, people were being awkward again. I still see this. I travel all over the country. And when I go to those deep blue cities in the deep blue states, you go to San Francisco or, Washington, D.C., Chicago, there's the hospitality industry has been crippled. People are a bit off. And I'm finally just now starting to see these sort of deep blue cities crawling their way back to learning how to behave normal,
Hmm.
interact with people normal. So you brought people together to play music that were playing music alone. Heck, you said a lot of them are struggling with alcohol. I'm sure some of them are still drinking, but at least they're drinking. I don't know. Do you have a rule on bringing alcohol to the venue?
Yeah, it's a dry event. Yeah.
Okay,
So, and
so
that's
they're
one
gonna
thing
have
is
to
that
pre.
there are no people. I mean, we have the refreshments and all that, but yeah, there are there are some folks I noticed in this town. They attested, local business owners I talked to and stuff. And by the way, they've all been. It's a terrific community. They've been super supportive and helpful. but yeah, no, a fair number of people were like, yeah, you can't go anywhere except places where they drink. That's what we do in the evenings is people get together and they drink often too
I
much.
love it. So what you've done is you've created a place where people can actually go for what they really want, other human beings, without
Yeah.
having to give into alcohol. I remember when I first moved to Washington D.C., I never really drank. I moved to D.C. when I was 29 years old, and I started just getting like a club soda or a water every time I would go out. But you want to go out, you want to be with your friends. Like, sooner or later, I just started drinking, and before you knew it, I was drinking a lot. And
Yeah.
so I made it through the army. I made it through college while not drinking. Because in Hawaii, you don't need to drink to be around people. To go to places and be with your friends. And
Big cultural
um,
difference.
yeah, big cultural difference. And then when you're in DC, trust me, if you want to be around other people in the evening, there's going to be a lot of alcohol. So I think that that's
Yeah.
great. So because this is a video podcast and this is our first one, guys, I really appreciate you being patient with us. This is going to be a little different than my normal show, which just they go on and on and on. So as I'm trying to learn how to do shorter shows, I'm sure it's going to be a bit of the pace is going to seem strange. Steven, we only got about 10 minutes left, so I want to have you talk about Father Aeneas a little bit, set it up, and then we're going to premiere it, and then I'm going to land the plane.
Awesome. So Father Aeneas bails you out. It's a Christmas song I wrote. We're just releasing it, and the timing is perfect. It's a song about a Roman Catholic priest in the middle of World War III. And in the song, he bails out an old friend who is languishing in jail, and they travel together to a midnight mass for Christmas.
That's beautiful. Let me ask you a question. Obviously, the name is very powerful. Father Aeneas. Aeneas, in many ways, is the founder of Rome, witnessed the collapse of Troy, founded
Yeah.
Rome. Is that went into your choosing that name?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I love the Aeneid. I really love it. And I the song it represents an attitude that I advocate for, which is because you mentioned I'm a conservative, right? So half of the brightest thinkers really that we've had for the last century and a half at least, the people who've done all of the leading intellectuals in the public square have all just been observing and observing and observing that we're in a period of civilizational decline. And those observations have become more and more kind of biting and urgent. And after a certain point, though, I'm like, okay, you're right, more or less, right? That's fine. But we can't just be the nerds who are sitting here saying, guys, everything's falling apart. And so I love Aeneas because he's a guy he's an epic hero. And Virgil sets up this epic story of this epic hero. The whole story starts when everything Aeneas had built and cultivated and ruled over is lost. When Troy is on fire. That's the beginning of the story, right? So Father Aeneas is a person who responds heroically and begins his epic story at a time when many other people who are more or less right-minded are just saying, guess what, Troy's on fire. And instead he's saying, no, duh, Troy's on fire. That means it's time for me to get going. That's my begin. And of course, Aeneas, he leaves Troy. He takes with him his father. Yep.
Father over his shoulder, wife at his
Yep.
side, and carrying his son.
Carrying his son. Yeah. And you've written about this, that, he's essentially he's taking his heritage and his culture and his posterity, the future of his people with him. He's completely taking responsibility for all of that. And he's saying, all right, let's go. And of course, he's destined to found Rome, which is civilization from the perspective of most future generations. And,
And that
today
was
you
not
could look
easy,
at,
right? My favorite line in the Aeneid, I'm an Aeneid geek as well, is what a long, hard road it is to found Rome. And so what I like about your song and just even the title is we should not expect that we're going to have an easy road.
No, and I also like though that, of course, also I am a Roman Catholic, and I cast the Aeneas character as a Roman Catholic priest, right? So when he's refounding Rome, he's refounding what Chesterton called the soul of the nation, right? Which is Christianity. And so what he's carrying forward is the central thing, the main animating factor that makes a people cohere and flourish in the future. But the context of the whole song is literally a leveled country. New York has fallen. Washington D.C. has fallen. So imagine that you're somewhere in Middle America. You're in a context of total social breakdown. A little bit of law and order locally, but it's corrupt. At one point, he mentions bribing the cops and having to kill the thugs. In other words, you have to resort to vigilantism, and fight your way to the country, and then you have to turn off the headlights, and you have to be stealthy, get to your destination, and the whole purpose of it is to invite our Lord into this barn with a midnight mass, and to invite the people to gather there as well. So he's refounding Rome. I think here's the cool thing about the song too. I think one reason why people are moved by the song, and they really are moved. Every time I play it live, someone at least cries. I kid you not, in front of new audiences. And I think part of it too is that it really does thoroughly acknowledge, in a sense, how badly they feel. There's something very wrong, and virtually no one I know doesn't think that. And after a beer or two, they'll admit it. But there's a tendency, especially among Christians, I think there's a little bit of a tendency to say, "Oh no, it's not so bad. Don't worry. You're a little upset, honey. You're gonna be all right." Which is, that's a dismissive. It's dismissive of what might actually turn out to be a vital calling. And so I think people like hearing, "Hey, you know what? By analogy, the bombs have fallen. New York has fallen. D.C. has fallen." So, and it's almost like a counter argument. Sorry.
Can I give you an example of just this wishful thinking, pie in the sky? When Afghanistan in July 6th of 2021, President Biden went on the air and said, "Afghanistan will not fall. You will not see planes, helicopters on the roofs of our embassy. You will not see a repeat of Vietnam." When he said that, 85% of the districts of Afghanistan had already fallen.
Yeah.
So obviously, okay, to you, to me, not a big deal. He was wrong, but so what? To half of Afghanistan that is now suffering acute hunger, to the 180,000 SIVs, Afghan SIVs that were abandoned and left behind to their own fate. Joe Biden having his head in the sand, this Joint Chiefs of Staff having their head in the sand, was catastrophic and cataclysmic. And we are so lucky, we have been so blessed that we have been able to not experience the catastrophes that are happening all around us right now. So, but sooner or later, the dominoes that are falling are going to reach your doorstep.
Yeah,
but I want to say one point on that is I just participated in a podcast or like a conference, like a teleconference on how to reconquest Western civilization, and how silly. And I came out there and said, well, yeah, no, that's not my interest. My interest is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the ends of the planet Earth. My interest is defeating the culture of death and creating a culture of life. And Aeneas did not spend his life trying to reconquest Troy. He founded Rome. And so rather than looking over our shoulder with nostalgia to what we've lost, people saying, "Oh, our borders are collapsed, there's an immigration invasion,
Right.
Our culture is being destroyed," why don't you evangelize the people in front of you? Why don't you?
Yeah.
You don't have to go on a mission trip anymore to the ends of the earth. The ends of the earth are in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
There is no reconquesting. Just as Aeneas could have never reclaimed Troy, he did found Rome, which Troy was a city-state. Rome was the greatest empire that spanned the world. So, yeah, we should be less concerned about reconquesting the West than conquering the world.
Yeah, and in a way, it's almost like the Aeneas image and Father Aeneas, the song, is almost like a counter argument. It's basically like, oh, you want to talk about the immigration invasion, you want to talk about all of these negative things, and it's like, so what? Let's say Troy has fallen. What are you doing? What are you doing? Because in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, there's no end to what I can do. There's no end. I joke with my wife all the time. I always tell her, I'm the king of Beaver Dam. I always tell her that. I'm the king of this community. It might be a little bit of an exaggeration, and I'm trying to impress my wife.
There's the Napoleon of Notting Hill, and then there's the king of Beaver Dam.
Yeah, but I mean it in the sense of, sometimes it's tempting for people to be like, even. Pardon me, I'm just plugging my computer in.
What happened?
So sorry, my computer was threatening to die. But no, but I mean, there's a temptation to even be like,
when your computer threatens to die, you should always take your computer seriously.
Yeah. So
because then the one time you don't, it will die.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even like people are. I don't even like the attitude, and part of why I like being here, and I like that I founded a nonprofit here, is I just said I want to stop going. I want to stop running to some new place. I want to put down roots. I never had roots. I was born from Midwestern parents in the Northeast, so I was never a local anywhere. And I said, I want my son, like you could say, look at this, the schools are so corrupt. I don't trust anyone. Our neighbors, everything is, no one has any common culture anymore. And, I was having this conversation with someone recently, and I said, no, when my son is 14 years old, he's going to live in the best town in America. Because it's my town. I want to make that happen. If I'm not going to who's going to do that? And I don't want to go to, there's a lot of more abstract ideas that I could kind of, like you said, I could go on to some conference about reconquesting the West. What? Exactly what
the
am I gonna
best
do
way
with
to reconquest the West is in your basement of your house.
Oh, yeah.
That's the command center for recon. It's just sit down there and tweet away.
With refreshments.
Yeah, with a refrigerator 4 feet away. But
with
meanwhile, even so what?
By the Queen Mother.
Even though, so what? When you're lonely, when you don't know your family or your children, when you have no place. Like I have no place. I don't feel home anywhere, but strangely, I feel home everywhere. That's that I am a rootless person. And what's interesting is I lived most of my life in Hawaii, got there when I was 17. My children lived most of their life in Hawaii. My oldest children, all of their life in Hawaii. And when we moved here, it was really jarring for my children in a way that I couldn't comprehend. They had a place. And now we've been in the hill country of Texas for 3 years, and they love it here so much that we're going back to Hawaii for a couple of weeks for Christmas. And they were like, a month? We were actually going to go back for a month because I'm doing a documentary there on Lahaina, investigating Lahaina. And so I said, well, we'll go back for Christmas, and I'm going to be working on the documentary. You guys can stay. They're like, a month? Texas is our home now.
Right.
Texas is our place. We love Hawaii. We have family and friends there. But Texas now, they're putting down roots here, and children really want the place. And more, we're just a world of rootless people.
Yeah, and another thing, too, is that I think a lot of people, what they want in these abstract notions of I'm going to reconquer the West or I'm going to do some sort of grand thing, is they want to avoid people. And in a way, that involves it actually involves avoiding a certain optimism and dynamism and excitement and adventure because people change all the time. Like, do you look at your neighbor and think, I wonder if that guy's on my side? Like, he could, he's, like I said, when people walk in, if people walk into Last Day Music and say, hi, I'm a gay Marxist, or I'm a monarchist Catholic, or I'm a Trumper, or whatever, I'd be like, that's not very much of interest. That's not you. And who you are is more. Go ahead.
No, my neighbor's not on my side, but I love him. I'm looking at his house right now. I have this beautiful natural light coming into my office,
Yeah.
and I'm looking right at his house. I love the guy. He's in his
Yeah.
80s, and he's works for the VA. And I was going to grab his book. I have his book over there. He's written a book on post-traumatic stress disorder. He spent his entire life. What's the important thing about this guy? That he's an old school Democrat from the East Coast. And is going to vote different than me, or that this man has spent his entire adult life serving veterans with PTSD.
Yeah.
Sadly, I just found that out after living next to him for 2.5 years.
After you egged his house and everything.
After I took down his signs and put sugar in his gas tank. No, but I've always liked him. I knew he worked at the VA. But I didn't know what capacity. I knew talking to him, he was an old school Democrat, just like my grandparents. So, from that Roosevelt generation. But he's a great guy.
Yeah, and also more and more of the time, I just think that a lot of people, the abstract ideas they have, like some of the people who I'm working with here might be often going to a conference about reconquering the West. Others might be going on to a conference about conquering the West for the LGBT movement or something. I don't know. But their abstract ideas that they would express are not necessarily who they are, and they're not the most interesting thing about them, most likely. And they're not necessarily good expressions of their deepest motives.
And meanwhile, the West has been conquered. But what have we been conquered by? That's the question. What is it that we all recognize something? We're all fighting something, but I don't think we've actually recognized what it is that we've been conquered by. I think it is. It's progress. Like, I don't think it's the fall of the West. I think it's the ascent of the West. But where are we ascending? What are we progressing toward? And what have we lost in this progress? And what do we define? What do we define? I think we define progress is everyone gets as many calories as possible. Everyone gets as many calories as possible, as cheaply as possible, which, by the way, that's a really good goal, right? When I was a kid, they still had commercials for little Jason in Appalachia who's starving to death. There'd be a little blonde kid with dirt on his face playing with a rusty old fire truck. Little Jason doesn't have enough to eat today. Like, to your generation, that seems like absolutely preposterous that there would be commercials on your black and white TV to send money to Appalachia. Well, now little Jason in Appalachia is, 14 years old and weighs 300 pounds. And is probably going to overdose on fentanyl. So it's as if we've been progressing towards an objective, and we've reached it, we've achieved it, and we've gotten there. And we're like, wow, we maybe didn't think this thing through.
No, I think what it and another way of putting the same thing, and I think you're right, but another way of putting the same thing is we have gained a lot of superficial markers of happiness, and it's driven us mad because we have felt obligated to, out of gratitude in response, pretend that we're happy in non-superficial ways.
Yeah, our kids aren't dying from childhood diseases.
Right.
We don't know what it's like to be hungry. We all have flat screen TVs. I mean, everyone in America has a flat screen TV. I remember being in third grade and seeing a statistic. 68% of American homes have telephones. And I was like, wait a second, everyone doesn't have a telephone? Well, now we all have several phones. We all have flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
But who's happy?
Yeah, no, and we're extraordinarily, increasingly unhappy. But the thing is also that among those who are happy, I see even more insidious problems sometimes. I
Okay,
like
so I was
sad
going to say
songs.
I'm
People make
happy.
fun.
So I'm happy. So what's the more insidious problem?
No, no, no. I'm not saying it you, but what I
Well,
guess
call
what it
no
is,
man
I
happy
don't
till
know.
he's
Like,
dead. But I feel that I'm fairly happy. I was lying in bed the other day, and I was pitying myself for no reason whatsoever. Like I had no reason to be throwing myself a pity party. I don't even know I was having a pity party. And I wasn't even a pity party. I was just like, how many true friends do I really have? I was like, oh, my problem is I got too many really good friends that I can't be a good friend back to in return. Like I'm like, who would be there for me in a time of crisis? Who wakes up in the morning and really thinks about my well-being? And I'm like, okay, actually, I'm pretty good. Why am I feeling? Because when I ask the question, I'm like, I don't have any real friends. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I have a lot of really good friends. I'm grateful for my job. None of my so I think I'm kind of happy, and I'm not lonely, you know. But I've gone through long stretches of loneliness in my life, which I'm super grateful for
yeah.
because it's made me empathetic to loneliness.
Well, I mean, I think I think that what I'm getting at with there's a certain kind of happiness that I think what frightens me about it is that people get together, like say at a Bible study or whatever, and their whole purpose is to get together and reassure each other, um, and to keep each other from being reminded that they're going to die, and that
Say that one more time.
they spend a lot of energy basically trying to prevent each other from recalling the fact that they're going to die, and that all that they have, all that they could hope for is passing. Almost everything sensible is
You,
passing,
you,
and that there's something very disturbing about that that needs addressing for us to be sane. And rather than address it, I think a lot of people will just reassure themselves until they're kind of shocked by the final moments, which are shocking. But
it's that
maybe I'm
poem
morbid.
by that poem, 1939, September 1939, by Auden. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. Children afraid of the dark, lost in a haunted wood, who have never been happy or good. Probably butchered
That's
that. Faces
beautiful.
along the bar cling to their average day. Oh, no, no, no. Okay, it goes like this. Faces along the bar cling to their average day. All fort assumes the feeling of home, so we forget who we are. Children afraid of the dark, lost in a haunted wood, who have never been happy or good.
Yeah.
Something like that. And
Yeah,
and
and that's
and that's where
that
we are,
poem is
right? It's
that's beautiful. It's an expression of how we are. And that yeah, I had a conversation a while ago. I had an argument with a Protestant friend. Not that I'm not dissing on Protestants, but um, we were having this conversation about there's nothing that that could threaten my salvation. God's got me. I'm good. I'm happy. Everything's going to be fine. And I said, my problem with that, and he was saying, cite the scripture passage that contradicts me, and I said, well, no, I mean, I ended up basically saying my problem with that is more like personal and guttural, which is that telling people that everything is fine and they have nothing to fear flies in the face of how we most deeply feel. You're telling people that their most profound instincts and impulses and inclinations are false. We all know. We are all mortified, essentially, and we are all. And so, I mean, I've
I
most of
am
my
not
life.
more. I have no fear of death. My first 5 minutes after confession,
Okay, and then
I'm brazen. I'm super
nice.
brave. But other than that,
But
yeah,
well, and I'm not just saying we're afraid of hell, and that's even a little bit too articulate. I'm saying more universally, human beings feel that there's something very wrong with us, and
oh yeah,
we have a certain heaviness and weight, sorrow to us. It's just part of our species. I've been depressed
Yeah,
most of my life, and I think that
I want to do a whole show on that. I want to
yeah,
talk about your struggle with alcohol. Why the reason why is I think it's very important to have these conversations because so people don't know that they're doing this alone. Because we all kind of skip through the world, not because we are prideful. Really, I think we don't want to burden other people. Those people who are really addled with depression or whatever you're wrestling with are really probably more empathetic than most folks. And you're like, look, I assume everyone else is carrying their own baggage. Why would I put any more sandbags around their shoulders, over their shoulders, right?
yeah,
But then at the same time, almost contradicting that, we have empathy towards others. We don't want to burden them. While we think our problems are extremely unique, and there's something wrong with us. So they might have this problem or that problem, but I have this problem. There's no excuse for that, and there's something really wrong with me. And people need to know that is like the most natural human feeling ever.
yeah, and that's my Tom at Last Day Music. By the way, from Black Scotty Records. They're the ones that produced Father Aeneas Bails You Out, and they're great to work with. Black Scotty Records, but Tom is always making fun of me because I sing really sad songs, and I sing a lot of like old-fashioned country. That's the genre I often write in. And but I'm like, no. I mean, there's like one of my favorite lines I ever wrote was, "I've lost sight of more brightness than I'd ever hoped to view." And it's just such an exact articulation of how so many people feel sometimes.
Say that one more time.
I've lost sight of more brightness than I'd ever hoped to view.
So that's like the hope in that is gratitude. Like you've
Yeah,
lost
no, it's
sight
an
of
overwhelming gratitude at the same time
brightness.
as being a very dark emotion.
It's very
Um,
dark while at the same time expressing gratitude. It's very it's very clever. Now I want to get into your song, and before we do that, to your point about, I want to wrap this up. The point about, you know, this idea that I don't fear death or judgment doesn't meet the human experience. You and I are going to be doing something very unique, and it's going to be sort of for Patreon supporters. Once we're going to launch a site, it's going to be behind the paywall. The reason we're going to do it that way is twofold. One is we want to generate support for the show because as we do the video show, it's a much more challenging, especially because I wanted to go to the long form format because I don't know how to do a succinct short show. And so I go on all these tangents that right now I've been able to not been. I'm like, I can't go down that path. But Steven and I have a book coming out later. I have 2 books coming out this year, but at the end of the year, I have a book coming out called On Rocky Soil, the spiritual autobiography of a man you may not meet in heaven. And Steven is going to interview me for this book as a spiritual and writer's exercise, chapter by chapter, as I write the book. And we're going to be very open and very intimate, and I don't want that because a lot will not go into the book, and a lot of it will go into the book in a more nuanced way than as we're going to be expressing it. So that definitely has to sort of be for folks that are friends of the Jason Jones Show or friends of the Vulnerable People Project. So we're going to be doing that. So I really, the point of that book is on rocky soil, that I recognize that when our Lord talked about seed falls on good soil and rocky soil where the bird comes by and pecks it away, I recognize that I am rocky soil. And I may not go to heaven. I have that real sense, and I don't feel that would be a great act of injustice. I feel that would probably be expected. I feel like maybe even if I got into heaven, that could be some sort of great act of injustice. So as we're working on that book, that's sort of to the point, right, Stephen? My book is sort of to the point of your conversation with this guy, so I thought it'd just be a good opportunity to talk about that.
yeah. No, it's going to be awesome. I look forward to that.
You're like, I didn't follow that. You're like, I didn't follow that at all, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I humor you. You know, I think that's my job, and I'm just kidding.
Is that your job? You're not my true friend. So when I was sitting there like, who is my true friends? I'm like, number one on the list, Steve and Herried. And now you're like, I just humor you. All right, guys, here it is. Introduce it.
So Father Aeneas Bails You Out is the title of the song. It is about a Roman Catholic priest in the middle of World War III, and he's bailing a friend out of jail, and they're traveling together stealthily, maybe having to kill a few thugs on the way, bribe a few cops, to a midnight mass for Christmas.
I want a priest like that who's going to kill a few
Yeah?
thugs. Yeah, I need that guy in my life. All right, here it is, guys.
Yeah.
Father Aeneas Bails You Out.
I'll make that money back somehow, and dollars ain't what matters now. Let's get you home, my darling Steve. You should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve. You should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve. You didn't know who else to call. You knew I'd loved you through it all. If more to give than to receive, you should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve. You should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve. A lot has changed since New York fell, and Washington was blown to hell, but we still have our debts to pay. We still belong somewhere on Christmas Day. We still belong somewhere on Christmas Day. So bribe the cops and kill the thugs. Say yes to Christ and no to drugs. If all the world has lost its way, we still belong somewhere on Christmas Day. We still belong somewhere on Christmas Day. We fought at home and fought abroad, but devils fight and so does God, and every soul's a battle line. That's what I'm fighting for this Christmas time. That's what I'm fighting for this Christmas time. In this old Jeep that is my home, I've saved enough to refound Rome. Just bread and martyrs' bones and wine. That's what I'm fighting for this Christmas time. That's what I'm fighting for this Christmas time. Turn off the headlights and radio. We still have many miles to go, and there's one star that's shining bright on where we all belong this Christmas night. On where we all belong this Christmas night. While bodies piled up in the street, I found a farm where souls could meet. There with the words of institution, I bring forgiveness and communion. I bring forgiveness and communion. I'll make that money back somehow, and dollars ain't what matters now. Let's get you home, my darling Steve. You should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve. You should belong somewhere on Christmas Eve.
Stephen, that was beautiful, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's really been an honor, and thanks for playing the music. And also, FYI, I'm going to be releasing a new single every month on the first Friday of each month. And
So how do
the
people
best way to
follow
keep
you? How do people find
they
this out?
can.
I subscribe to your Substack, which I love.
Thank you. Yeah, my Substack would be the smartest way. Yeah, I'll keep you up to date on the new releases on my Substack.
And how do they find your Substack?
It's just going to be my name. If you search Substack for my name or my name plus Substack on Google or whatever your search engine is, so Stephen Herried on Substack.
All right. Anything else you want us to follow or know? Donate to Last Day Music.
Yeah, I'd love people to donate to Last Day Music, but it's a 501c3 and it's legit, but I haven't set up any donation links or anything, so sorry.
You are the worst
You should have to
fundraiser
write to me.
ever.
I know,
You're like
I'm the worst. I haven't
That
even
was
put
the
up any
worst.
marketing.
That
Yeah.
was awesome. That way you're not taking any of my donors today.
Nice.
That's
there you go.
wonderful.
Yeah,
I
no,
really am
actually, you know
great.
what? The best way you can help Last Day Music is donate to the Vulnerable People Project.
Become a
which you can
monthly
find at
donor. Get your hat. You have a
greatcampaign.com.
hat, don't you?
I do have one of your Vulnerable People Project hats. Yeah, I should have
You're a
worn that.
donor. You earned it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Stephen, let me land the show, and I look forward to catching up to you soon.
Thanks very much.
Okay, guys. Whew, I got to tell you, the technology for me was a bit challenging. Also, the time limit. Normally, as you know, the Jason Jones Show can go 60 minutes to 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And today, because we were just kind of testing out this technology, we had a limited time. And that was making me feel a little uncomfortable because I couldn't go on many of my tangents I wanted to go on. Also, we're learning this technology. We're going to get this down. I really appreciate those of you who are longtime listeners of the Jason Jones Show. Now you will get to listen or watch. For those of you who have never watched the Jason Jones Show before or listened to it, because this is the first time we're on YouTube, check out the Jason Jones Show wherever you listen to podcasts, and come back here next time. I promise you we're going to have this technology down. It's going to be a bit of the old format. But because my dear friend Stephen Herried just released his new song, it was important to me that we got to play it for you right here. That's something I really wanted to do. And so we rushed. We ramped up our timetable. We didn't want to do this until the new year because I'm going to get to the big ask for you guys. You know, I'm the president and founder of the Vulnerable People Project, and our mission is to care for the most vulnerable people in the world during the most challenging times. The winter for us is a time where we do most of our work. Over the next several months, we will be distributing 5,000 tons of coal across Afghanistan, Mongolia, and to Christians and Afghan allies who are in safe houses in Pakistan, to Christian communities in Malawi, Uganda, Nigeria, and we're preparing for massive deliveries of support into Gaza to support the communities there. You can stand shoulder to shoulder with VPP as we serve the most vulnerable people in the world by going to thegreatcampaign.org and making your very best end of the year gift. I founded the Jason Jones Show to really have a place where I could just yell at the world about the atrocities that these communities are suffering. We've had the privilege to stand with the Uyghur, the Yazidi, the Christians, and others in Iraq and Syria that were embattled by ISIS. And the winter time is where we do our Coal for Christmas campaign. It is a fact. It is proven. No one can dispute this. I have delivered more coal for Christmas in 3 years. The program's 3 years old, than St. Nicholas has in over 17 centuries. You Google it, look it up. There's no doubting I have delivered more coal than St. Nicholas, and he used magical flying reindeers and had elves that worked for free. All we have are our volunteers across the world, a small team, donkeys and trucks. And our donkeys, believe it or not, in Afghanistan, a lot of the places we go, we have to use donkeys. If you go to our website, you can see some of the donkey trains carrying coal over some of the most dangerous icy mountain passes in the world to reach some of the most vulnerable and isolated communities in the world. And those donkeys don't fly. There's no red, shiny nose. Their noses don't glow in the dark. They don't fly. They just do the hard work with their volunteers of trudging coal up up and down mountains. And you can be there with them in a very important way by making it happen. A donation of $250 keeps a family of 5 alive through the winter. So, and by the way, last year we were saying a family of 7. Bidenflation has impacted the whole world. The great thing about our Coal for Christmas campaign is you can save lives while upsetting Al Gore and his friends, because it's so much fun when I tell people we deliver thousands of tons of coal to poor people, and they look at me horrified as if they're so offended by coal, and yet they don't shrug at tens of thousands of families freezing to death through the dark winter. But save lives, make Al Gore mad, and the rest of the climate cult folks mad by going to thegreatcampaign.org and becoming a donor. All right, until next time, this was the first Jason Jones show on YouTube, and man, it's not as easy as you think. I'm really impressed with the guys that do this all the time. All right, until next time, the Jason Jones Show.